I want to welcome everybody out to Planning and Zoning Commission for this night, April 1st. To get started with, I've asked Commissioner Woodhouse to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Woodhouse. Our first agenda item for the night is the approval of the minutes from the last 3 months, it looks like.
Great.
All right.
That's my fault, sorry.
Has anybody had a chance to review those? And if so, I'd take a motion.
I'll make that motion. Approve the minutes.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion is approved. Any opposed? Good. We have a preliminary plat to come before us. It's the Andy Ridge subdivision.
So the next two items on the agenda are related. One is the preliminary plat, and the other is the zone change. I'll present both, or I can do it separately, but we do have two separate motions as well as a public hearing for the zone change. So this is the property that we're looking at here on the screen, just barely over 3 acres in size. Next slide, please. On the left, you see the zoning designations. Arrowhead subdivision wraps around the property, and it would also provide the street access to the standard subdivision that's being proposed. Sorry, back. So we've got R112 north, east, and south, and then existing RR rural residential to the west. And Quail Run is a private road which serves a number of houses off of it. Next slide. So this is the proposal. There is an existing house on the property which would remain, and it would continue to have its access off of Quail Run Road. The 5 new lots being proposed would have access only via the cul-de-sac that's being shown here on the image. As a standard subdivision, each lot needs to meet the minimum lot size as well as dimensions. And so we've got 100 feet width on each lot, over 100 feet of depth. 3 of the lots are in the range of 12 to 13,000. We have a 13 to 14, a 15 to 16, and then the existing home is on 51,000 square feet. The DRC did look at this last month. We're in April now, and recommended approval. If we go to the next slide, this shows the street that would be extended and become the cul-de-sac from the east. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. So, as mentioned, the Development Review Committee does recommend approval. This is the proposed motion for the preliminary plat, findings and conditions as written. 5 was specific. If we go back to the cul-de-sac, yep. So 5 states that 1, 2, 3, and 4 will be addressed and accessed from the cul-de-sac, and that lot 5 will be addressed off of Quail Run Road. And then condition 5 also that the frontage for lot 5, which is the lot with the existing home, as far as setbacks, fencing, landscaping, that would be treated like a front yard, so we wouldn't have a stretch of fencing that would be up along the cul-de-sac. Any questions on the subdivision request?
So what does that mean for the fence on to the rear of lot 5? So that's saying that because that would be their backyard, they would have to run it in a shorter fence, like a 4-foot fence?
They could do a 4-foot fence, or if they wanted 6 feet, it'd have to come off, I believe, 15 feet from the sidewalk.
Would that only be a fence? I assume, because access is on Quail Run, there's no, back entrance or anything like that, or do we?
There's no restriction as far as them not having a second driveway, so they could have a driveway access off of the cul-de-sac. But as far as structures, like if they wanted to place a shed, it wouldn't be able to fit here. They could do it over here, and then there's some existing buildings over here. And so this request is for a standard subdivision. So the Planning Commission would be the approving body. Obviously, it's subject to the council approving the zone change from RR to R112 so that it could develop as currently indicated on the general plan.
Okay, one thing you, just for the public's information, can we go back to the map and show exactly where this is in Spanish Fork?
One more, Ian.
Okay, so this is off of,
Arrowhead, Main Street.
and then this other one, right? Oh, wrong way.
I just got zapped.
This is Woodland Hills Drive right here,
Yes.
And then Mill Road.
and then Mill Road. Okay, great. Thanks for that orientation.
Mhm. The applicant is here tonight.
For the format of this, you will then have a public hearing presenting on the zone change.
Yeah, we can do
After
them.
this?
We'll need to do them separately,
Yeah.
so we could do the motion first on this item, and then I'm happy to answer any questions on the zone change, and then we'll need a public hearing at that time before
Great.
you act on it.
Okay, so then to reiterate, I'm sorry, I'm just, so to reiterate, this is the existing home, this is their front door, they have a drive or something that goes this way,
Yes.
and then the front of these homes, of all the other homes, will be here. This will be their access, and then this is their rear, and they'll have a fence there.
If they do, it'll have to be set back as if it was a front yard, so that the cul-de-sac will have uniform look instead
okay.
of one lot that has
Okay, that
you know,
was
6-foot fence, for instance.
that was
at
what
the
was
sidewalk.
striking me funny. Okay.
But a fence is not required. They could optionally
No.
choose to not have a fence.
Correct. Yeah.
Thank you, Brandon. Would the applicant like to come up and address us? If you have any points that you feel you might want to clarify or highlight,
I think Brandon did a great job.
he did a good job.
He does a great job. So,
Would you please state your name? also?
Andrej Christensen.
Great.
So, do you have any questions for me?
Do you currently own this property?
I don't. I'm working with
You're in your due diligence trying to
Yep,
secure.
exactly.
Okay. Great.
So this isn't your home that's already existing on the property?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Was that the original property owner, the homeowner there? Did they own the whole
That
property?
owned it, that I'm working with, yes. And he lives in. He doesn't live around here. He rents the home now.
Oh, you got that.
Maybe not.
Yeah, he lives out in Vernal. Super nice guy. So.
So then why keep so he wants to keep, he's planning to keep this part of the
Yes,
property?
he'll keep that property. Yes.
Okay.
I guess we don't have any questions. That was easy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
can I add one thing now? And I don't know exactly how we'd look at how it would apply, whether it's more on the plat or the zone change. But one of the neighbors reached out to me yesterday, and I appreciate just being able to talk with Mr. Christensen a minute ago about the neighbor's concern of having an arena. I believe they ride horses there, right up against the subdivision, what would be the subdivision. It's against the subject property now. And they have suggested that some fencing should be put in place with the development. She's not able to be here tonight, so my thought would be that it'd be best if the applicant, who has talked to her before, as I understand, on different issues, I think there's a good relationship there, but I think it'd be helpful if before this goes to the city council, we have a conversation with that neighbor about what they're thinking and just try to come up with something that works.
Where is the riding arena located?
Right there.
And as far as a fence, what are they desiring?
It's right there.
She said 6-foot vinyl.
Yeah, there's certainly different ways to look at it, and I'm not ready tonight at all to talk, about what might make sense to, if anything, to require of the applicant. But I think there's reason to be sensitive to somebody having something like that next to a development, and where.
Reason being that kids playing in the backyard might startle a horse or something like that, or
Yeah, and she's concerned about people complaining about dust.
Oh, yeah, because they've also
that
got,
kind of thing.
they have lights in the arena there.
which are going to be over 6-foot vinyl fence.
And yeah, so they're going to be up, and there's going to be dust. And I think there might be another arena over here too. But yeah, I would bet that the city's going to get some calls in the future that of neighbors complaining about it.
And there might be a way to address some of that now. I think that's the idea. And
So yeah,
So do you feel like that should be a condition, condition 6 that's put on there that the
there's a solid fence.
I would not. So, and I'm just going to speak for myself. And I think Brandon, he identified that there are different ways to look at it. And I appreciate what Mr. Christensen and I just talked about. I think it's true that whether the developer install a fence or the homeowner that will buy the lot and build a house there, they likely would. So I think somehow the most fundamental ways to make that relationship work as well as it can, they're going to be addressed. I think it just is helpful when a neighbor reaches out like they did.
Sure.
To have some dialogue, and that's really all I'd suggest right now.
Okay.
And
It sounds like you're willing to reach out and talk to her.
I've spoken with her before.
Great.
yeah, and just I don't even know that needs to be a condition of approval. I mean, the city council could always consider that if they want, right? And
Yeah.
I think we have this at least tentatively planned to go to the city council on the 21st of April, so we have a couple of weeks if that schedule gets followed.
So there's no fence there right now, and there's nothing keeping the person that owns the arena from building a fence as well, correct?
Correct. Yep.
There is a fence, but it's not a large privacy fence or anything.
So it could go both ways, and neighbors can work together just like they do in any other neighborhood. Is that what you're saying?
That is certainly a possibility, yeah. Ideally, we'd get
You
off
just want
on.
sensitive. We're proposing a zone change
Yeah.
from what was existing, what has been existing there when they put the arena there. We want to be sensitive to what they're seeing might be impacting their current situation.
Yep.
That makes sense too.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering about this strange lot that is. Could I borrow your pointer?
For sure.
Thank you. I'm just wondering if I'm just wondering about this strange big lot in a home that is the owner it's not owner occupied. Somebody is renting it, and I'm all for renters, but why keep it in that shape? Why keep it in like all that extra property? It just is a strange configuration to me to all of a sudden have a backyard on a cul-de-sac. It's probably fine, but it just seems kind of, anyway, strange to
I
me.
guess a comment may be strange, but it's what's there right now, right? It's a large thing,
Yeah.
and I mean it's just what we run into as we get growth. There's existing properties that
It's what the existing owner is probably willing to sell to the new applicant.
Yeah, I guess that's
And this complies with the zoning he's trying to achieve.
but it's well over over 50,000 square feet.
yeah.
And that lot actually matches up with the neighboring, this property and the other property over here. They're all animal properties, horse properties, and similar size.
That makes sense.
So,
Any other comments or concerns? If not, I would entertain a motion on this subject. Then we can move to the zoning part of it.
I move that we approve, this is an approval, Dave, is that right?
Approval.
that we approve the preliminary plat for the Andy Ridge subdivision based on the findings and conditions.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That was, the recommendation is approved. Go along with that, we'll move into our next subject, which is a public hearing. The next two items are both public hearings. And it is the Andy Ridge zone change.
The only thing I'll add on this is, so the designation for the general plan is low-density residential. The proposal is R112, which is consistent with that. The Development Review Committee also looked at this in March, and if we look at the motion here, they did recommend approval with the findings as written. Any questions for staff before we invite the applicant or go into public hearing? Thank you.
Do you want to address us on this at all? You don't have to.
I think Brandon does a great job.
Great.
I don't think those-
Great.
Unless you guys have questions. And
No, we're good. We'll open it up to a public hearing on this subject. If anybody is here to speak about the zone change for the Andy Ridge subdivision, come on up and please state your name and what your comments or concerns might be.
So my name is Kenan Pine. I'm a realtor. I'm the realtor that the Grovers have hired to sell this property. And so I just wanted to briefly just say that I do feel like Andrade has thought about the private street that's there, and that the property does match those properties well. I know that the Grovers love it there. They did actually live there with their family. I sold it to them probably 10 or 15 years ago. And they love it. They decided to keep it because they were kind of a little sad about selling it, because they were going to just sell it. So they are, I guess, emotionally invested over there. But anyway, I just think that Andrade's been very good with the neighbor. I went with him on I don't know if he met with her more than once, but I went to one of those, and he was very, from my perspective, good to her and listening to what her concerns were, and actually changed some things that were in the works on that to make it better for her. So hopefully she's feeling good about that situation. But I do feel like it's highest and best use for that area, because you have that whole new subdivision over there, and it'll match that. And with the driveway staying on the front, on the private lane, it'll look nice, and hopefully they'll be able to put some money into that yard and make it look great and make your city look better. But anyway, I appreciate you guys letting me make a couple comments.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else? Okay, we'll close the public hearing for this topic. Commissioners, do you have any comments? Okay, I will entertain a motion on the Andy Ridge zone change.
I'll make the motion that we accept the zone change as written.
We read the
Move to
motion.
recommend approval of the proposed Andy Ridge subdivision zone change based on those findings.
Great. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so this will then go before the council at their next meeting for approval of the zone change. The next topic is also a public hearing. It's the Hells 2 lot infill.
This one came before you, looking at my notes, back in March of 2023 as a townhome concept. Since that time, the owner, the applicant, has changed the proposal, and we'll present that tonight. This is the location we're looking at, 208 North, 600 East. Let's go to the next slide. On the left, you see the zoning. The area is R16. On the right, you see the land use designation, which is medium-density residential. What he's looking to do, in my opinion, if you go back a slide, Ian, or Josh, whoever's driving, sorry. In my opinion, this concept that he's changed to will fit better in the neighborhood than the townhomes would have. Existing home on the property built in the 30s. Per the county records, sometimes they're accurate, sometimes they're not, but it's an older home. The applicant is looking to tear that down and split the property into two. What's unique about this application is the minor plat was recommended it was approved by the Development Review Committee as a standard subdivision, and the only condition was that with reduced setbacks, it would need this infill overlay. And so let's go to the next slide. This is showing the property. It's a corner lot. The white home is what would be removed. Let's go to the next slide. This is the two-lot subdivision that the Development Review Committee looked at and approved contingent upon the Planning Commission and City Council action for the zoning overlay. Both of these lots are over 6,000 square feet, meet the dimensions and widths. Once again, the key is the product that he would like to place on it does require a reduction in the setbacks, which the infill overlay would allow for that modification. Let's go to the next slide. So this is showing the two product home types that he's proposing to build. The caveat with the infill overlay is we would expect them to follow the building elevations and plans as presented and approved. And so looking at the staff report, the north setback, they're looking to reduce that to 16 feet along 200 North, where both garages face the street. They're looking to reduce that from 25 to 20. And then the interior side setbacks are proposed at 7 feet, and on the corner, that complies with the 15 feet required by code. House on the left is 30, I have it in my notes over there. One of them's 3,200 square feet, and the other one is just under 3,500 square feet. So they are well sized. Let's go to the next slide. This is the corner lot, basement, upstairs, two-car garage with two-car driveway. Next slide. These are the proposed building elevations. The applicant did discuss with our community development director a couple times as far as materials and look, and we feel that they've done a good job in updating these elevations for presentation to you. You've got siding, you've got a brick, or excuse me, on this one you have a stone wainscot. Let's go to the next slide. This is the elevations that would face the interior side. So the elevation on the top, that would be between the two homes, and then the rear, the north elevation would be the backyard. Let's go to the next slide. So this is the interior lot that's not on the corner. Next slide. Basement on this one as well. Next slide. This one's got vertical board and batten and a brick wainscot. Next slide. You can see they've carried it around all four elevations on this one. Next slide. So once again, the reason why they need the infill is for the modified setbacks. The Development Review Committee, when they did look at it, they feel, as it's written here in their recommended motion, that it fits in well with the area, meets the intent of the infill overlay zone. And then the third condition, there is the expectation that these elevations would be followed as presented. Any questions for staff on this item?
So between the two homes, there is a 14-foot, there's 14 feet between the two
Yes.
houses, 7 feet on each lot.
Yeah.
Okay, and on between it and their neighbor to the east, their setback is 7 feet. Where, can you pull up the map to show what is
Yeah.
the neighbor,
So
what is the
7 feet
neighbor's,
here.
where is their next building located? Is there a garage at the side of their house? How far over is it?
We can pull that up. So their house is here, driveway here, garage back here.
Is there any concern with where the driveway for the furthest west house will fall as in relation to the
I
corner?
believe it has to be 34 feet off the corner. So you usually measure, if I'm correct, Josh, from the curb, you go in 34, and that's
Yeah.
as close.
It just
Yeah,
looked like it
that's
was pretty
right.
close to that, looking at the site layout.
Yeah.
So where are the front doors for these two homes, if you go back to?
So this interior lot would be facing south, and then this corner lot, the garage would be facing south, but the front door would be facing west as it currently is.
And so really the backyard for that, the corner house really is on the side and not in
Well,
the
the
back, because
functional
that's a 7
The
foot.
functional backyard would be
Yeah,
probably that
functional
area.
backyard, yeah. How are the setbacks compared to the neighbors?
Which neighbor? And
The one to the.
we didn't necessarily do an analysis of the neighbors' setbacks.
Can we pull up the map to
Yeah.
look at the neighbors?
Which one are you concerned with?
I'm not concerned, I'm just interested, east. So is that 645?
This one
Yeah,
here?
that one there. So,
I think we'll have to pull up an internal map if you're.
They had
gonna-
7 feet from this
Josh.
property line to the house, what they're showing.
right, I'm more looking at what the setback is from the street, from
Here?
200 north, yeah.
Yeah, give us a second and we can pull up a map that we can do measurements off of.
I'd be interested to also in the house to the north,
Okay.
just if there's a big difference, but it looks like it probably wouldn't be a big difference.
Okay. Yeah, we can pull that up. Is there any other questions for staff?
I think you covered the one I touched earlier, because parking, I know if you've been in that area, it's tight. So my biggest question was parking, but if we got 2-car garage and driveway for 2, it makes me feel a lot better, so.
Yes, that's correct.
The driveway, 20 feet, that is enough for a car, probably 2. So they could fit 4 conceivably off-road.
Yeah. And
As everyone
corner,
knows, they're
yeah.
using the garage for probably storage, right? So maybe we're still 2.
I'll let the
This is a
applicant speak to
3,000 square
that.
foot home. This isn't a townhome.
No.
Their question on the use of the garage
32.
for storage or cars? Cars. Ideally cars.
I mean, this
And
is,
there's basements too, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The applicant is here.
Makes
We'd love
sense.
to invite him up to any questions you've got if there's nothing else for staff at this time. And, looks like we've
I
got
think,
it.
yeah,
Oh,
Sean.
thank you.
So I think Commissioner Warnick was asking, what is this setback here from
Yeah.
the sidewalk to the house, and then the same on this property here? So 33?
Is it different to the
To the front of the
Yeah, right there.
porch.
Yeah, more,
Would be,
20?
that one's at 22, well, 20.
So about the same.
Should you count it from that porch, or do you count it from the
Closest
closest
point.
piece, right?
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, so let's try that porch on the top, on the north property.
So 19 on the porch, and then Josh, what is the porch from here?
And so then going back to what are the setbacks we're looking at?
You were at 17 and a half this direction, then 20 in the front, or on the,
Yeah, so 20 along 200 north, almost 18 feet on 600 east.
and then you say it's only, they're only required at 15 feet
Mhm.
on that. So they're well within the,
Yeah.
No change to the sidewalk, that would continue to be the same size and dimension. Is that
Correct. Thank you.
Thank you. The applicant want to come up and address us? Please come state your name and tell us a little bit about your project.
My name is Travis Hells. I'm a little nervous. So the project, this was originally my grandma and grandpa's property. I bought the house on the interior lot we're building for my daughter that's here for their first home. The second home we are tentatively going to keep for my son that's currently on a mission. We may end up selling it, but we don't know yet. We looked at putting a fourplex on it. It was 2 stories, and I kept driving up there thinking everybody would hate me because it would have towered over everything. So we played around with this and came up with this and thought that it would fit in. We had it originally where we were going to put the garage on the exterior lot facing the other way, but when we came here the first time, they asked us not to make it look like a corner lot. So we tried to make it look like there was kind of 2 fronts with the garage door and the front door. It's still a corner lot, but we did the best we could do to make it look right. But yeah, that's what we're doing. So.
Any questions for the applicant?
I don't think so.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any comments? Any discussion points we want to go over?
I like that we went over the setbacks. I think the numbers are reasonable within what's there in the neighborhood. I actually kind of have a question for Mike. I mean, I know you have family in that area. You feel good about the parking situation?
Oh, I do, yeah. Once Brandon cleared it up for me, because if you've been down there, it's tight. But if you're going to fit 4 cars in, that's a lot better than what it was. So
yeah,
I like it.
And I'm just going to say generally, these are some larger places making good use of the land. I actually really like that quite a bit in that old area. More mature, established area. 100%. I think the variety there is actually pretty good. I've seen that in a couple places in town, and I think it fits quite well. I feel very good about what I'm seeing.
I really like this design.
Much better than a townhome or a duplex. It's 2 nice homes in that area.
Because, again, it's probably more established homes around there with people that have been there a while. They'll be happy that it's not.
They're going to love not having the duplexes. Yes. I did hear that quite a bit.
So. With people moving in and out.
Yeah.
And these houses, I think, would add a lot to the neighborhood. So.
Agree.
Yes.
I like it.
Good.
I think so too. I think the only thing that I think the elevations on this home are pretty good. I think it's a little bit boring in the front, but I think it, like with the roof line there, I love the elevations on this one here, but I think that I can't complain too loudly about it. Anyway.
She's going to talk quiet then.
Anyway, that's.
So this is what would be facing that corner street?
Facing 6th or 2nd? 6th. Yeah. I think they'll be great, and it's so awesome to have families come in, and that's kind of the thing these days is smaller lots and a decent sized home on a lot that you can do some good things in.
Okay, so if there's no other comments, I would entertain a motion.
Need a public hearing.
Oh, public hearing. Thank you so much. We'll open the public hearing. Is there anybody here to talk on this topic? Please state your name and.
My name's Corey Furr. I own the house just to the north.
Okay.
And I mean, as far as a plan, we are way happier with this idea than like the fourplex thing, which was only rumored as far as we were concerned. But I don't know that I have any concerns for myself. I was interested to see kind of how close the houses were to the property line and how much distance between the 2 houses. And I think that's okay. My one question was the house to the east, where it's so close to that property line. There's those giant willow trees that you can see that are kind of hanging over that property line. And I know that's not anyone's fault, but I know the owner of that home is going to be a little concerned about impacting the health of those trees. So that is, I think, my only comment to that. If the plans impact those trees in any way, what that impact is and what can be done to kind of find a happy medium. So I think that's it.
Well, thank you.
Thanks.
Is there a way to estimate how that canopy of that tree would go over the site?
We could go to the street view real fast, and what I do like is the house design on that interior lot. That southeast corner is open because the garage is pushed to the west. Anytime you have issues with trees, it usually, in this case where it's between two properties, it becomes a civil matter, and sometimes you have to go to lengths to show that
Be the
that
other one.
person's actions actually were what caused the damage to the tree. And so I think I would probably turn to the property owner and just say, kind of keep in touch with the neighbor and
It's actually
be
the
good
other, it's
neighbors.
the other house. This is the one in the
Go
corner.
back 2 slides.
Yeah.
So how does that work? If a tree,
So the one tree is obviously gone.
The pine tree is actually on our property.
Right.
And then the other 2 trees, like, they overhang my property by probably 15 to 20 feet, and they've never maintained them. Like, my grandma and aunt lived there as long as I can remember. So,
yeah, that's my question is what are if you have a tree hanging over your lot, can you just be like, sorry, I'm
Yeah.
trimming your tree back that's
Excuse me.
over my lot?
Yeah.
But I think it's a good point where the driveway's on the other side. I mean, you can see from the picture it will, but I don't think it'll.
You'd expect with a 7-foot setback that you'd probably be excavating to within 5 feet of the property line, I would think.
Yep.
So you'd have 5 feet to the property line plus whatever you have between the property line
Yeah,
and
that's the picture I was wanting right there.
The root
But you're
ball.
looking at that tree's, the canopy of it's probably in this area, right?
Yeah, I'd agree.
So you're not going to be too close to the roots with your excavation here,
yeah.
but you are going to be trimming back that tree, I imagine, quite a bit.
There's another tree set back.
Oh, in the back?
Yeah.
Behind it?
On the side.
Okay, I couldn't see that in the picture.
the front one is much bigger, but I mean, even if we don't do this, our intent is to cut the trees back because they're overhanging our property and killing our grass, and we can't do anything. So our intent is to cut them at the property line.
Right.
And to be clear, I don't have a stake in the game. I just know that they are going to be concerned about it, so I just wanted to.
Sure. Great, thanks for bringing that up. Any other comments?
I think this is a fantastic idea.
I do too. I like it. I think it's a good little project right there. Of course, there will be change. There probably will be things that people don't like, especially during the construction time, but it happens. I'll entertain a motion if anybody wants to present one.
That was the public hearing.
Oh, I'll close the public hearing. Wow. And then we'll go to a motion.
I'll make a motion. I move to recommend approval of the proposed Hales 2-lot infill zone change based on the findings and following findings and subject to the following conditions as noted.
Thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. That closes that section of it. Our next item of business is a Title 15 amendment. This is also a public hearing. And it looks like Dave is going to present to us on this amendment.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I think the language that's proposed to be added to Title 15 in this case really speaks for itself. Of course, what we're talking about here relative to churches or houses of worship, we're not talking about any particular denomination or faith or anything like that at all. Yet at the same time, I don't want to come across as being coy in any way. This is proposed by Spanish Fork City staff in advance of receiving what we think is going to be an application that would be submitted by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for a big building like they'd like to build. We understand on the east bench. So we've had enough correspondence with them thus far to know that they'd like to build that building larger than what currently is allowed. So in this case,
Larger or taller?
both. When I say larger, I guess taller in two ways. We don't limit the square footage which would maybe be one way to look at larger. You can see from the language that's proposed that we're looking to limit the height of what can be built in two different ways, while at the same time allowing for more height than what today the code expressly would permit, if that makes sense. I'll talk more about that and maybe fill in any gaps that I created there. But want to mention, first of all, just kind of by way of the approach in terms of suggesting that the code be made more permissible. There are a couple of parts to the proposal. One is to create a new use effectively that would be allowed in different residential zones in the city. And that use, simply titled Churches Taller Than 35 Feet. Which incidentally today, the maximum height as is defined in our zoning code for churches is just that, 35 feet. And incidentally, it's not uncommon to see other architectural features associated with churches that are taller than 35 feet. I think, in fact, if you looked at most of the buildings that have been built over the course of the past 20 years in Spanish Fork, a lot of them might approach 35 feet in height on the roof line of the building. And then a lot of times there's something that stands beyond that in terms of height. Steeples, I think most commonly is what they're called. And I think those oftentimes end up being about 70 feet tall. So in this case, the ultimate provisions would allow for the structures to be as tall as 80 feet to the roof line.
So can I just get a little bit of clarification? So you're creating a new subject use for structures over 35 feet because our existing one would cap that at 35 feet.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
And this is in residential zones.
And this would only apply in
Not
residential
commercial,
zones.
right.
Exactly. Yep.
Zones.
Yep.
So in commercial zone, they'd be fine, they could build it.
I would want to just double check that, but I think you're right. Yeah. Because right now we don't limit the height in zoning districts by the use of the property in most cases that I can think of, at least. So you're right. In other zoning districts, for example, I believe in our commercial 2 zone, for example, the maximum height is 45 feet.
48 feet?
48 feet. So in that case, they could go to 48 feet. If somebody wanted to build a church, I don't know if but I'd have to say this, talking about this use, I don't believe churches are allowed in a lot of our non-residential zones. That's another thing that would come into play by way of where somebody could build something as big as what we're talking about here tonight. Did I answer your question?
You did. I was just clarifying. That's what I understood. I just want to make sure that I was understanding that correctly.
Okay. So it would allow for up to 80 feet to the roof line, which if you were to look at maybe a structure like what we're talking about from a distance, that would be the bulk of the building. And then extending up beyond that height here, whether somebody called it a steeple or a tower or a couple of any one of a number of different types of features, they could conceivably be as tall as 200 feet, provided that those features are constructed in such a way that we could deal with that from a firefighting perspective. So we have a materials requirement that would go with that for those features. Anything that at least would be taller than 70 feet, and the 70 feet ties to what currently we have in the community, if that makes sense. So that delta between what currently is allowed and what is proposed with this. Now, that's the language in terms of the change in terms of what would be allowed from what somebody could do today and what somebody could do with this proposal. But I appreciated Commissioner Warnick bringing up earlier tonight maybe the difference between a conditional use and a use subject to condition. So in this case, as proposed at least, churches taller than 35 feet, would then become a use subject to conditions. So somebody could only take advantage of those provisions to allow for bigger buildings if the project involved a lot or a parcel that was larger than 8 acres in size, with the structure being at least 65,000 square feet in size. And then we have the additional provision that talks about the materials that would need to be used on that steeple part if it's any taller than 70 feet. So provided that, the first condition, that the site is 8 acres in size. The next condition, provided that the building itself has 65,000 square feet, which incidentally is not the footprint of the building, but the total square footage of the building. And, that other condition relative to the materials on anything taller than 70 feet is met. Somebody would be able to get a building permit for that structure essentially by right. And that means they wouldn't need to come to the Planning Commission. There wouldn't be a public hearing. There wouldn't be an opportunity to impose, maybe site-specific conditions on a project and that type of a thing, which would be the case if it was simply listed as a use subject to conditions. So the difference there being use is subject to conditions. There aren't the prescribed conditions like what we have here, where it's simply a matter of if you meet these conditions, you get the permit. Things are a little bit less defined and maybe less predictable with a conditional use. And with conditional uses, the Planning Commission is the land use authority that grants those. Does that help?
So when it comes before us, they are looking for a conditional use permit. We look to see if it makes sense in the area. We talk about why, all of that. But when we're changing this in Title 15, use subject to conditions, adding this makes it so it won't come before us to get permits. This is what's allowed.
I'm going to adjust one slight thing that you said, or maybe just suggest something that's a little bit different. If you're talking about a conditional use, it's not a matter of whether or not that gets approved. And there's a lot of misunderstanding throughout public bodies all over the place in terms of what conditional use means, which is why legal counsels at all different levels have suggested that cities don't have conditional uses. They are the source of litigation, at least occasionally, because of misunderstandings and that type of a thing. What a conditional use means is that if you feel like there's a need with a particular proposal to impose conditions that are reasonable on a project to mitigate the impact that that project has on something else, neighbors, maybe the community at large, you as the land use authority would have the ability to do that. So when we talk about conditional use requests, that's what we're talking about typically as staff, is what needs to happen with this particular property to make it not adversely impact neighbors, which would be one approach that could be taken here. In this particular case, I think that would be a mistake. I think this can certainly be handled more from the administrative perspective. I think it's easy to understand what the intent is with the particular proposal that we're talking about in terms of size, and I think it's easy to anticipate what other impacts will be with the project, and we as staff are working with the property owners, engineers, for example, to address, for example, just traffic and other things that come with this kind of a use.
But Dave, you're talking about a particular case right now. We're talking about a Title 15 adjustment, which is not a particular case. It's for a citywide change.
I would say the same would be applicable with any project that had 8 acres in size that wanted to do a 65,000 square foot building. So that's
the church.
That's exactly, so that's what we're talking about. Yeah.
Does this exception is only for churches?
Yes.
Yeah.
Title 15.
Churches taller than 35 feet.
Only for churches.
And only because I want to be clear about the phraseology. For me, exception just means something different. So I would not call this an exception, but it's something that, and maybe back to your point, and not that we anticipate that there's going to be a run now of religious institutions that want to mimic this, but this would apply elsewhere and isn't isolated just to.
My concern is, I don't know what Shauna's concern was. My concern with it is not having site plan oversight on that is a concern to me. If this goes in 8 acres or not, you put a building the size of a hotel next to somebody's with a 200-foot steeple on it, then existing homeowners are going to be concerned. And we take time to talk about trees and 7-foot setbacks and things like that on properties, and here we're going to put an 80-foot tall structure with a taller structure on its roof. Who knows where on an 8-acre property with all the traffic congestion, which is the other biggest concern we have in this body. I just see that as a concern. I would like the city, not so much just this body included, to have more oversight over that, or to have more say in the matter. I don't know if we'd ever have oversight, but say in the matter of where things are located and how it functions in our community.
To be able to review plans and have a presentation, et cetera. Sounds, I don't disagree. I mean, I generally trust the entity that we're really making this change for.
But yet, I mean,
yes.
I'll just
There's possibility
interrupt.
for other entities to do the same.
To be
Right.
clear, this
I don't care what the entity
And
is.
it doesn't,
Right.
that shouldn't,
There are certain instances where the churches had things it's impacted the neighborhoods.
Right.
And most of the people who live around them are happy with it. Some people are not. And there's some people that may not be ought to have a chance to have their voices heard.
and there's, from what I gathered from what you said, if this would pretty much take away the city's ability to dictate lighting, entrances, control how we want it to look, or how the city what the city and the residents want and need versus what this certain entity
Or tell
requires.
us about that.
well, yeah, that's a great.
I don't want to do something that's going to take away from the city's ability to control what comes into the city and how it is maintained, how it, lighting 24/7, all that.
That's a great point to make. I should have thought of that. I should have brought that up. We are not suggesting that any of the criteria that apply to churches in terms of any of what you just described change at all. So that would still be in place. I guess you could say as well, we're not suggesting that those criteria that the standards get ratcheted up, or that we become more stringent in terms of what needs to be done with site plan approval, which is something that staff administers for churches, because of these size changes. We do have lighting regulations.
The staff would still have a say in that, in approval through the permitting process, correct?
Yes.
Would the Planning and Zoning Commission, the Design Review Board, and the City Council still have a chance to review that and comment or make changes?
Conceivably, no, except for, you said Design Review Board, that essentially is staff. So this would be a situation where if somebody met these criteria and wanted to apply for site plan approval and to apply for a building permit for something like what we're talking about here, those would be administrative approvals. There is something beautiful, I think, about administrative approvals. So I'm going to push back a little bit about opening up the door for there to be some type of additional review, particularly if that review is subjective. Somebody maybe feels like there's one impact that warrants attention, maybe somebody else doesn't, and maybe how you go about mitigating impact becomes less defined than what we're talking about here. That's not always the best position or situation for a regulating body like Spanish Fork City to be in. So in as much as we can make things objective, where again, it's if this happens, then, there's just an automatic, it's if then, almost in like a checklist kind of a fashion, where if you meet certain criteria, the end result is predictable. there's certainly value in that as well. I think situations where we're talking about site-specific conditions, that really becomes helpful when we're talking about uses where I think it's easier to anticipate really unique impacts that you have on neighbors. And I think it's maybe because I understand just a little bit more about the site that we're talking about and how conceivably that would be put together. Not talking about just 8 acres where maybe a big building like what we're talking about would be located, but also how another 19 acres around it would be developed.
See, I don't have that information, so I
You
wouldn't know
don't.
how to make a judgment on that.
Exactly, right. But because I do, that's partly why I have the perspective that I have. So,
Another concern I have, sorry,
nope, please.
I don't want to cut you off, but is if this takes it out of public comment. I mean, the public gets zero input on this. Basically, once this goes changed to this title 15, and I'm not comfortable with that because I think we're in a residential area. There's going to be a lot of opinion, probably a lot of support, but I think the public deserves the right to show that, and we shouldn't be here to take that away from them.
I agree with Commissioner Woodhouse. That's my main concern, is that if this was approved tonight and it's approved by City Council, what opportunities the public would have to come and voice their opinions about lighting, impact on their neighbors. I think the public needs to be involved in the process.
I think public buy-in is a good thing too. I understand the reasons for doing that and trusting staff, et cetera, et cetera. I have a few comments and questions. So number one, when I was traveling in India a few years ago, I was talking with a driver and said, I would like to go visit my church. And they said, oh, you're a Christian. And I said, how do you know that? And he said, because you said church. And so I look at a definition that says church, and we're not in India, so maybe this is a moot point. But if you say church, that could imply one thing, and I know that the intent could be that we could have a mosque here in Spanish Fork in this kind of situation. We could have a cathedral. We could have a Hindu or Buddhist temple. We could have a place where our friends who are Jewish worship. There's a temple also. Anyway, and so for me, a definition that this is nitpicky, but it could be house of worship instead of church. I don't know if anybody cares about that in Spanish Fork, Utah. I'm just saying
That's
it.
very valid.
I'm just saying it.
Argument.
Number two is
On that point,
yes.
can I jump in now?
Yes.
I
Go.
realize I'm interrupting. Sorry. We feel the same way, and that was some counsel that we were given by our legal staff. And we could pull up Title 15 real quick and just look at the definition of a church.
How is church is defined?
It is more
Okay.
encompassing than just what maybe.
Where the definitions matter, so
It
that's
is.
good.
But yet, like we talked about in the work session before, as we're going through definitions, I think you will see the definition change to exactly what you just said, or the title change from churches to houses of worship, just to be even more clear.
So you're saying this would
About-
require maybe a change elsewhere in the code to change that name?
No, because I
Or
think
in the
churches,
definition
it's
when you
really
see-
an encompassing definition that we have.
Where-
It would
oh, okay.
Today it does.
In
but
the
yet-
United States,
Or-
a church means a house of worship.
Well, in
Title
15 of our municipal code as it's defined, I think you'd see that several of the different
Yeah.
structures that accommodate people of different faiths fit into that
Gotcha.
definition already.
Okay.
Nonetheless, I think what you suggested is much better from a practice perspective. By way of, let's stop calling it churches and let's call it houses of worship. So
Okay.
sorry to cut you off, but
Nope,
we're on
nope,
it.
that's great. That's great. Okay. Number two, if I am going to vote to recommend to the City Council this change, there's a few questions I have because I have colleagues that might not vote for this because of this particular thing, but if I do vote for it, then this is my one bite at the pie. And is that the right word? way to say
Sounds good to
that.
me.
I'd like to know about what the city's what's the city code about lighting, and lighting the same brightness of lighting all day, 24 hours or less at night, or could you? I'd like to know about that. I'd like to know about parking and road. Like, how's the road going to be finished along those two corridors? Because anyway, and then what parking will look like in those areas?
Okay. So 3 things.
3 bites of the pie.
Streets, parking, lighting.
Yeah.
Parking, we have parking requirements. Those have to be met. And those are based on a number of different things. I think, in fact, for churches, we might still have kind of an antiquated way of regulating that. I think it might be by number of seats or like space on pews even. We can check that. But it's simply it's a numerical thing that comes into play. I believe with what we're talking about here that the city's parking requirements would likely be exceeded in enough of a way that it doesn't come into play in this case. But regardless, it's just defined by some quantifiable, measurable metric. Streets, again, whether we're talking about site in question or any place else, if somebody were to develop a new site next to a street that isn't currently brought up to the city's standards for design, whether it's street width or maybe the absence of a sidewalk or any of that type of a thing, they simply have to follow the city's requirements for developing the site, which means develop streets. The exception would only be if somebody were maybe purchasing, you could almost call it a finished lot, if all of the streets around it are already fully developed. More specifically, with the site that we're talking about, particularly the street, and I think it's both the street on the north and east side of the subject property, they're not fully developed, and the property owner is aware that they will need to enhance those.
Both sides, or just
north and south. On
side
the
of the road.
frontage side, so on the property side, they will be improving those. On the north side of the street that runs along the north side of the subject property, I think that's already improved. On the east side, I don't believe it is. And we're talking with them about making improvements on the east side as well as their side on the west side of the road that runs north-south along the east side of the property. But that's defined in our development standards by way of what somebody would have to do, and the location doesn't matter. It's predetermined in terms of what somebody would have to do to improve streets in order to get a building permit for any kind of new land use.
So for a church taller than 35 feet, would the width of the road need to be changed because there'll be more traffic in that area? We have a school close by too. There's a lot of traffic already there. There'll be a lot more. What's the planned widths when they're finished?
Yeah, so I'll talk about that agnostically, if that's a way to. It doesn't matter what the use is.
Doesn't matter the use?
Yeah, so our engineering folks, Josh, if somebody submitted a site plan for something and he felt like potentially there is going to be an adverse impact on the city's local street network, whether it's adjacent to the property or occasionally, I would say even oftentimes, we're thinking about maybe intersections that are remote to a site, an applicant would be required to prepare a traffic study, which is a site-specific analysis that takes into account what the specific proposed use is, and it identifies where improvements are needed to address the additional traffic that's added to the system based on the use that's in front of us when that project's getting reviewed. And we work with applicants to make improvements. Occasionally we use funds that we collect as the city to make improvements, impact fees, both off-site and adjacent to subject properties to deal with traffic impacts. And again, it doesn't matter if we're talking about a church that's 25 feet tall, 65 feet tall, or a Maverick or a Costco
Townhouses
or
or-
whatever,
yeah.
right? That's just
Or a
how it-
school. Schools.
schools. I think schools are
But a lot of those
weird.
traffic impact studies
but-
we've had in the past have said, no significant impact, or the impact's been controllable. And we've had a lot of community feedback on it that has generated changes, even though the traffic study said one thing. We've had such feedback from neighboring residents that there have been certain changes made to help alleviate those problems. And as Commissioner Woodhouse and Carol said, without that public hearing, the community doesn't have a platform to be able to voice those concerns. Correct?
True. Yep.
What, would there be a way to change this so that it could become it would need to have a conditional use permit? This could be a conditional use instead of a subject to conditions?
Wouldn't that be just not making the amendment?
Yes.
No, it wouldn't be that.
Wouldn't be?
And we can talk about that in a second. But you left lighting.
Huh?
Lighting?
Oh, yeah, lighting, go.
I'm dying here.
Thank you. Oh, and it's bite of the apple, I think, not the pie.
The apple.
Thank
That's what
you.
we say.
But I like pies better.
Pie, right? Yeah.
Maybe apple pie. Well, let's take
Could be both.
Yeah, call it an apple pie.
Our requirements for lighting, frankly, I think are fairly light. I didn't mean that, but they're not terribly explicit. We do require dark sky lighting. So, for example, when somebody lights a parking lot, they have to use lighting fixtures that direct light downward. Is the best way for me to describe it. I think part of that as well is that the source of light, which I picture it just like an old incandescent light bulb, that has to be shielded so that even if I'm a great distance away from a parking lot light, I can't see that light source as if it were in, maybe some kind of globular acorn-shaped light fixture where there's a glass bulb with the light in the middle of it, and you can see that for miles, if that makes sense. So we do require things that shield light and that screen light, that direct light downward, and we require with site plans developers to submit what's called a photometric plan, photo light metric measurable, and those plans identify how much light there will be throughout a site and onto adjacent properties based on the types of fixtures that are proposed to be used, where they're located, and how tall they are. And those plans are sheets that have numbers on a grid throughout a property that identify foot candles. And we as staff look at those, and when we look at those primarily, we're looking to make sure that there aren't really light spots on a site, or bright, maybe is a better way to say it, and sites that are less bright. So we're looking for some kind of uniform level of lighting throughout a site, and we want to make sure that there's not light spillover onto adjacent properties, which is actually really easy to accomplish with the right kind of fixture, and sometimes even some kind of an additional shield that is an off-the-shelf thing that lighting manufacturers have to use to do just exactly what I'm suggesting there. And in terms of, for example, a parking lot, that would come into play with what we're talking about, and anything like that. It could be a school, could be, again, like a retail use, anything like that. I think we'd be careful to take the same kind of precautions regardless of what the use is. At least that's how our ordinance is written. I know that with structures like what we're talking about here, occasionally those get lit as well. Sometimes they're uplit, and that sort of a thing. And we really don't have much in our code that would say you can or can't do that. This is how bright it can or can't be. This is how much of a day you can have it lit, maybe, throughout the evening hours, or it could be like some type of a shut-off time for that sort of lighting, we don't have any provisions in place for that. So
So not
That's-
dimmer overnight.
in terms of what we inherently would require, no, we don't have anything like that.
Now, we don't have any buildings that might be illuminated similarly that are doing anything that I'm assuming this is completely new. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure I know the answer
No.
to that, yeah.
Yep. Okay, so back to a couple of different elements, maybe of the same question. Could what we're talking about tonight, or maybe something similar to it, happen without some kind of change being made to Title 15? Not according to Title 15 is my answer to that. Some kind of change needs to be made. Now, I am probably fairly ignorant, though. Warm up. I think Joshua probably is expecting it. There are federal laws that come into play when you're dealing with any type of exercise of somebody's freedom of religion that work their way through courts enough that I think there's case law and that type of thing that's a good time for me to stop talking. Joshua, you want to take it from there?
So you may have heard of some of these federal laws. I think we've talked about them before, but the specific law is called the Religious Land Use and Institutional Persons Act, I believe. It's abbreviated a lot. But essentially, the law, because the exercise of religion is protected in the First Amendment, then there's federal protections that go in, civil rights that essentially cities and states can't violate if they want any kind of federal funding or any of those things. Otherwise, you'll be challenged in the courts and lose, right, essentially. So this law, it's been in place for 20 years. The significant thing here is that any regulation that we put on a practice or exercise of religion, it can't place a substantial burden on the exercise of the religion without there being a compelling interest and us doing it in a narrowly tailored or what's called the least restrictive manner. So that's the law generally, right? So if we have, for example, if we were to try to do a conditional use permit and try to put any kind of restriction on even the building or the structure or anything in terms of height or lighting or any of those things, and it creates a substantial burden on the exercise of that religion, and they can articulate basically anything fairly easily to say that this is a substantial burden, then the burden of the law shifts back to us, and we have to articulate and prove in court that we have a compelling interest for why we need those restrictions. And not only do we have to articulate a compelling interest, we have to show that we've written our law in the way that is the least restrictive possible to further our compelling interest, least restrictive in terms of creating a burden on them. So that's how this Title 15 change sort of came about, is that we are trying to, so the only thing in my understanding that these structures potentially, why they couldn't just go and already get a building permit and build in town, is because of the height of the structure, right? And so that's all that we're looking at. That's all that we're talking about. If they came to a public hearing or anything, that's all we could really be addressing, is the height of the structures. All of the other stuff, they already can meet our current laws, right? And so I think if we got into all of that, we would have a lot of discussion on things that we can't even do anything about anyway, right? We can't talk about roads and lighting and all of that because we already have all of those laws in place and they already potentially are going to meet those. The only thing we could be talking about is the height. And so when it comes to the height of these kinds of structures, it would, if we have a restriction on it, which we have in the past, it would be a substantial burden for them to not be able to build the house of worship as high as they want to build it. And so what is our compelling interest for why we would restrict that height? And our best, in our view, our best compelling interest is fire safety. We want to make sure that if a structure comes on fire or something like this, that we are able to fight that fire, right, in a way that's reasonable and appropriate. So that's why we put in some of this language there in D, that anything above a certain height, it's built of non-combustible materials, so that we're not fighting fires 200 feet in the sky, but 80 feet, right? We can fight a fire 80 feet. We can't fight 200. But anything above the 80 or above the 70 is non-combustible materials. So that is our approach as staff in writing a law that furthers our compelling interest of fighting a fire in the most narrowly tailored or least restrictive manner possible. So that's where this came about.
But don't we have a compelling interest also as far as height goes, or building height, in the view corridors that this could or could not, because again, I don't know where this is located.
Sure.
Could have on the surrounding neighborhoods, could have on neighbors. I mean, we have had people appear before us concerned about the height of an apartment building that was only 40 feet high on the effect of its crops on the field next door.
Right.
So, I mean,
it goes to the other part of it, which is it's at least 8 acres. So, in terms of a view corridor, the compelling interest in a parcel that's more than, farther, not right up next to the structure, but farther enough away. They don't.
But you don't.
They
know
haven't found that to be
located on that 8 acres. It could be right adjacent to a 100-home subdivision.
It's true. You're right.
Or it could be on the further end, and it doesn't have much of an impact.
But that's the idea with the compelling interest, right? Is that a compelling interest? Is a view corridor a compelling interest? And from what I've seen and what I've studied on this law, it's not a compelling enough interest to be able to create based off the substantial burden that it imposes upon the exercise of the religion.
I know it's not exactly what we're talking about now, but has lighting been discussed as a compelling interest? I know that's sometimes some concerns.
Again, so I haven't looked at lighting because, as far as I understood, lighting was not an issue under our current laws, right? So I was only looking at this in terms of the one thing that was a violation of our laws, which is Title 15, which is the height.
It could be an issue, but it's not something we've addressed previously, so we can't make constraints in our Title 15 to.
You would have to amend Title. You'd have to amend Title 15 to restrict them if that's what you were trying to do.
Yeah.
Can I jump in with one thing? In my mind, it's a detail. I think you've made a good point, Mr. Chairman, a couple of times.
Thank you.
We're trying to come up here with reasonable, going back to it, conditions that just help provide some insurance that what we're talking about makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to see something like this built 50 feet away from a house or something like that. So, maybe coming up with another condition here that's a setback, maybe to any residential property. Like, in my mind, then there's just one other criteria that would have to be met that I think makes great sense. I don't know exactly what that number would be. I'm thinking 50 feet as being way less than what makes sense.
It's an 80-foot building.
Right. So you could start to just kind of envision some scale that might make sense there. But in as much as this might go forward, I think it makes sense to look at a setback requirement in addition to what we're talking about here.
How does legally the point's been brought up by a couple commissioners tonight about the public's having a chance to speak or address or be heard on an issue such as this. What are we allowed or not allowed to? I mean, that seems like that's just part of our process we do on everything. Why would that be eliminated, or is there a way to keep that criteria in there so the public is represented or at least have their voices heard? Or is that not allowed if we adopt this?
If this were adopted, there would not be a public hearing.
I understand. Is there a way to make it so it could be and not get us in a legal bind is what I'm asking.
I don't see how we get in legal bind even if we don't pass this. They can still present to follow the regular protocol, present the building, go through, let the public comment. Odds are, we know the neighborhood and that it's probably going to be favorable, in their favor, the comment. There are people that are going to argue the opposite, and I think their voices need to be heard. I mean, we're surrounded by these same buildings, and you know, they're there. And I don't know that these other cities, I know Heber City did not change their Title 15 for this, and they're still getting one where it was not wanted by the local people close by, but it's still going there and didn't get stopped. So what I'm saying is I personally don't like this idea because I want the public to be able to voice their opinion.
I understand that. So I guess the point is,
and I don't think we're crossing the line because, you know, it's the way it's been for all the other cities.
right. So I guess in my view, the point is attorneys for, you know, these kinds of structures would challenge our law, our Title 15 restrictions as a violation of federal law. Right, if we didn't change the law, we'd most likely be in a lawsuit with, they would come, make an application, the public could be heard. If we denied it because Title 15 doesn't allow it, then they would sue us under this federal law.
Well,
and then we would have
could they
to go
sue us
through
if we didn't have, like, they couldn't sue us if we just left this out, right? And
no, that's under federal law,
they could.
They absolutely would.
So that actually drives our requirement to have this.
Well,
that's my point is we're trying to avoid with this a potential lawsuit under federal law.
Correct. So, but can we stay within the law and change it so that it had to have a conditional use permit?
We stay within the law if we don't do anything with this. It's still there. They still can follow the same
But if we don't do this,
rights
then
as anybody else.
they still have that same right, but they have the right to challenge our restriction, right? Which they most likely would do in court, and we would, in my opinion, we would lose.
Right, but go back to my question. Could we have this be a conditional use permit? And it would.
So again, you
Be
could,
within the
it would
law?
be a different process, and you could put conditions on the application, but if you put any conditions on the application that create a substantial burden in violation of federal law, I mean, in my advice, the only conditions you could put on would be with respect to the steeple, the height of the steeple, or the height of the church.
We could put these very conditions on.
You could put these very conditions
It would just go into a different column that would allow the public to come and comment.
I believe that's the case.
Or we don't. We leave
But
it
that's
as
kind
is.
of what's happening right
Let
now.
them
but
present
it's
their
not
plans,
Understood.
and it goes through the normal process.
Right, so if they presented their plans as it is, and we denied them because our code didn't allow it, then we would get sued under federal law.
Right, but we can also
And we would lose
adjust the
that
plan
lawsuit.
at the time when we know what's getting built. Do we even know for
Still
sure?
approve a plan.
Right, we can still approve the plan. It can still be
Not
approved.
without a Title 15 change.
Not without a Title 15 change.
Or a conditional use, and a conditional,
At that point,
either a conditional use permit or these under conditions subject to, use under subject to conditions. That's
Conditional use would be sufficient, but this is just.
But
simple.
we've had meetings where we've had a Title 15 amendment just prior, or actually in one case after.
Concurrent.
Yeah,
I mean,
concurrent in the same meeting.
Yeah.
We've had those Title 15 adjustments in that meeting where they presented their plan.
Yeah.
Can
What
we do
I'm-
that?
Please. Please.
That's all I was going to say.
I didn't hear you.
What I'm hearing is that you'd like us to prepare an option that would have what we're talking about be a conditional use.
yes.
We'd certainly do that. So it wouldn't be hard to put that into a recommendation tonight.
You understand, though, that the conditional use, that we would want to have a plan in front of us.
That's how it would work.
Okay.
Yep. Somebody would come with a specific plan to you. There would be a public hearing, and you'd hear it in the public hearing.
Yeah.
So
Feel free.
Did we just not?
I want to make one comment here. Real
No,
quick.
well, may I?
Yes.
And I've thought about whether I should say this or not. 'Cause I'm afraid this is going to come across as being like a lecture.
It's okay. You can.
But I've had.
Okay.
Just look at me. They're
I've
expecting
been
it from
in
me.
your shoes.
We're all friends and understand.
In another community and did it for a lot of years. I chaired a body for a lot of years. And I hated seeing a room fill up, and it happened with regularity. When that community's regulations and development review processes were set up such that applicants had to come before us and have a public hearing even though our hands were tied, and if the applicants had done certain things, they were going to get approved. People came to the hearings, they spoke their minds, and sometimes they waited for hours to get their opportunity to speak, only for somebody like me to say, thank you very much, and then 10 minutes later to make a motion, because we had good legal counsel said that's all you can do, and our motion contradicted the majority of what we heard that night. So take that for what it's worth. That sucked most of the time. And we've tried to set up our processes here. So for example, if we went back a number of years now, subdivision plats went to the Planning Commission and City Council. Well before the state code said they shouldn't do that anymore. We can't do that any longer, at least not to the City Council. And the situation then was such that if an applicant met the requirements for subdivision approval, they got approved. And yet we held public hearings on those and invited people out, heard them, and a lot of times alienated residents that felt like we weren't listening, didn't care, or anything like that, when you know you care, but you also know that you follow rules. And so we've tried to set up our processes here only to involve the public when that input, really can be put into play. And this, for me, feels like that's kind of, there's maybe a little bit of a gray area there compared with some things. But anyway, I apologize if that comes across the wrong way, but I hated that. So
No, it's good.
It's wise counsel.
I have a question for Josh. So are you saying that the federal law is that any church can go and buy property in any city, and the city has to accommodate the church?
I'm saying
Any
that
church.
if the city has a law that places a substantial burden on the exercise of that religion for any church, worship, any of those things. And that's a pretty simple thing for the religious institution to articulate, right? If they can say any reason why this restriction or that regulation is a substantial burden on them, then the burden shifts back under federal law to the city to articulate why we have a compelling interest for that regulation and why that regulation is the least restrictive manner of imposing that regulation, right? So I'm not saying that the church can move in anywhere and just say, you have to let me in, right? The city just has to be able to articulate why we have this rule and that it's done in the least restrictive manner. And that gives religious institutions a lot of power, which we want under our First Amendment rights generally, right? The cities and government are not going to impose restrictions on the free exercise of religion, right? Generally.
Well, right. It's not the exercise of religion, though, but it's about the building and the impact on the neighborhood.
But buildings are part of the exercise of religion. Most buildings, religious institutions will believe their buildings are sacred and part of their exercise. They're designed in such a way to be symbolic and all of those things.
I understand that, but would lowering the height restrictions, would that be considered being too restrictive?
Typically it has been, yes.
Yeah. There's many without steeples
I don't disagree.
in the country.
I'm
And
just
so-
saying that federal law and federal cases, they've won.
So I think that's something we should give the church more credit for, that they're willing to work with people.
Sure.
And like the way I'm hearing is they're not, they're just going to railroad everybody. And I would think they would appreciate, have public comment and understand what people want to see and would understand. That they're not just a big bully that's going to come in and do what they want.
Yeah, I can't speak against that. All I'm saying is if the religious institution wants a certain steeple height and they say what your restriction on that is creating a substantial burden on the exercise of our religion, without a compelling interest and without doing it in the least restrictive manner, I know I'm repeating myself, we're going to lose that lawsuit. And in my mind, this is a way of not just punting and saying, do whatever you want. We're actually still putting in, here's some conditions. We're talking about setbacks. We're talking about height. We're talking about non-combustible materials. We're talking about a compelling interest with fire and some of those things. So we're not just rolling over. We're trying to articulate, and this has been our best effort from legal and from community development as well, working together at creating law that we feel like still articulates or still provides for our compelling interest of fighting fires in these kinds of buildings with the least restrictive manner. So
And I don't think anybody here is trying to say we want to restrict anything along those lines. We just we want to make sure it doesn't have a negative impact on the city, or help give some guidance on what we'd like to see in our city.
Right.
There have been, Spanish Fork is not every other town in Utah or wherever somebody wants to build this. It's special to us.
Sure.
And we'd like to have the elected officials or appointed be able to have a chance to say that. I mean, I know there have been cases recently in the last couple of years where a steeple height was challenged and
the city lost.
Yeah.
So I don't disagree with you that there could be public input in these things, but in this case, our only city regulation that is even up to debate or discussion is the height of the church.
Yeah.
Right. And so having a public forum and a public opinion about all of this, there's going to be a lot of discussion potentially not related to that one issue.
Dave, what's the tallest building in Spanish Fork?
Hospital.
How many feet high is that?
Anybody want to do some quick research for us? let's not. We could guess. Let's not wing it. It's less than 100 feet tall.
Okay.
The other thing I'd say, just with respect
I do
to
think it's close.
this item on the agenda, right, is it's a Title 15 change.
We can look at that. Okay.
So, sorry, while they're looking that up, but because it's a Title 15 change, you'd either make a recommendation to the City Council to approve this change or make a negative recommendation to the City Council, right, as part of this instead of, and then based off what the City Council does, we could change our positions. They would certainly hear all of the information and input that you've, or review, maybe not listen to the whole thing, but review all of the input you're giving tonight. Depends on how much longer
They're
you're
going to watch it twice.
What a good choice of words.
This meeting will have a public hearing, though, correct?
We have public hearing tonight,
Yes.
so people have opportunity tonight, right?
Correct.
There's just not a plan, like, there's just not a presentation and a plan like
For the
citizens in
site.
our city, yeah, right.
Correct.
I have one, just, I appreciate what our chair has said about setbacks. I think setbacks would be a good thing to add to this. I also I also wonder, I really appreciate what you said about having a photometric plan, like, and what you said about limiting light spillover. I think that's awesome. I really appreciate those. I really appreciate that in the code. So thank you very much. One thing I wonder is, are there other temples throughout Utah that they have to have their lights dimmer, like between like 11 and 4 a.m. or something like that, like not off but dimmer? I don't know if that's a thing or not, but I don't, and I don't
ask the owner, and they would
anyway.
tell us. Yeah,
That's I think, I mean, I'm not a direct neighbor, but I think it could be something that would be a little bit. But if you're looking at limiting your light spillover, I guess, and if setbacks. So I don't know. That's just anyway.
And I just want to be clear, unless I'm told otherwise, and would only be told otherwise if it is for the benefit of the city, I'm more than happy to put together like an alternate proposal that involves a conditional use kind of a route for the council to consider. Certainly happy to do that if that is of interest.
So we need to. Oh, we have to have public comment still,
I'd
right?
be
We
curious.
scheduled for that and we advertised for that. So yes.
Yes. Just waiting for us to be done interrogating you. Before
You
we
tell
go.
me when you're done.
Did you know you were going to
Is
be
that my cue?
interrogated by
Is
us?
that-
Anybody have any
Outta
other
here?
questions for staff?
The
Dave's been on a
hospital
roll.
is 83 feet tall.
83 feet tall. Thank you.
In what area? Industrial or commercial?
That's
Business park, I believe.
the zone. Yeah.
Business park.
Business park. Okay, well, thanks, Dave. We may be calling you back up, depending on what we hear. This is a public hearing on this Title 15 amendment. If any of you are here to speak on this matter, please come up and address us now. Please state your name as you come up and then your questions or concerns.
Hello, my name is Amber Edson. Listening at the beginning, I think I was confused why we were talking about it, so it makes sense it's a legal thing. But I think if the public is going to be denied all input due to having to approve it to avoid a lawsuit, my question would be, can you let them know that you have to approve it, but you're holding the hearing so that you can collect input? I don't know. All of that was just really confusing to me, but I was like, that seems really, really bad to have the city also in a position where they're like, yes, come and share your opinions. And we're going to do exactly the opposite if his experiences in the past play into it. So we'll see. I was just trying to think through it with everyone, but yeah, that's all.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Commissioners? Opinions? Comments?
This is an interesting one. I mean, I don't think it's worth our while to get into lawsuits over religious buildings, quite honestly. I, though, feel very strongly that public input is necessary. I think back a couple meetings we had, not related to a religious building, we discussed the construction of a power line in the river bottoms, and to align with what put us in alignment with state policy, we had to make a Title 15 change to where we couldn't have any hearing on that because our hands were bound. I actually voted no on that one, and I think we're not talking about fighting the federal government here, but I think my frustration there was that I don't think that the other public entities had done a good job of having a public hearing for that particular thing. So that was part of why I voted no on that. In a strange way, I'm almost feeling the opposite here for voting yes on this, because with only one exception, I really feel like the public, to your point, Dave, when you talked about some of those meetings suck, I think sometimes we have to kind of take input, get that input, and even if we can't do anything about it, I think it's worthwhile to have a forum where people can come say things. And I'll tell you what, I think here in city government we have a really good forum, which is so weird because I feel on the other side here, though, when it comes to these religious institutions, we're not going to have an effect here. So I feel a little conflicted, but I'm putting pros and cons in terms of supporting this. I've got more pros written down here from the presentation you gave, but it still feels strange to me. So that's the place I sit, which feels really weird.
If I might comment, though, Paul, that the utility company, I agree they didn't do a great job with their public presentation, but they did do public presentations. They weren't advertised well. They may not have had good attendance at them.
Perhaps that was my
frustration. They still did it.
Yeah. And in some ways, though, it's like right now, I think if perhaps they're not advertised well. We always have these meetings all the time, but I think the public would have quite an interest if they knew what we were talking about right now, and I just don't feel like they really do. So again, I'm conflicted, but I'm inclined to support this, which again feels conflicted. So
I think I feel bad for the optics because it looks like it's, to me, I'm talking about myself, that we'll do this and then it just goes around everybody, nobody's going to have a comment. But I also don't want to sit here till 11 o'clock at night for nothing. I mean, I like you guys, don't get me wrong, but bottom line is no matter what we say what happens, it's going to happen.
I don't think you'd be sitting here for nothing, myself, because, we know the buildings, they're planning, it's a temple, and it's coming to the neighborhood, it's going to be built. We know what they look like because we got one in Payson, there's one in Orem right up throughway, everybody can see. But I think the people in those neighborhoods and throughout town deserve to have their voices heard. And, and when people do voice their opinions, sometimes there's some really good things that come out of it.
Oh, I think we'll have positive and negative. It's
And
just
so,
in the end.
and I think we know in which direction the majority of the people in this community are going to go. Because there's excitement for this building to come in. And, but at the same time, I think, the city shouldn't just roll over and say, we're going to do whatever you want. Let you do whatever you want here. But I do believe that we need to, so I'm not in favor of this change on the amendment at this time, because I want to hear from the people in those neighborhoods and the people, that are going to be, their lives are going to be impacted by this.
100%. Which I agree with everything you said. It's just in the end, it won't matter.
I think it will to a point.
They'll feel better. We may feel better. We may feel worse.
And there might be something, because we don't know, like we've talked about, we have no idea what the plan is for the building. Might be a new style, might, whatever. But there could be, some concessions made in lighting, so it's not, I know they made some concessions in Heber on the lighting, for those people and, things like that. So I think it's valuable.
You would have hope that the entity would take into consideration and where they could make changes to make any negative comments.
Be a better neighbor.
Yeah, be a better neighbor. Just like we talked about tree trimming tonight, we've talked about a 6-foot fence, just like would help from any other resident or applicant that comes before us.
And those are much smaller things.
Yeah.
What if we did something, what if, like I said, I'm implied to approve this, or that's kind of where I'm feeling. Does the change have to be made now? I mean, could this be made, the exact same change made later?
It could be made when they present
They do it.
Like I said before, we have done this literally in concurrent, kind of a little bit out of order in past meetings, but it didn't matter because it was in the same meeting.
That would feel better to me, quite honestly, if we had more of a sense of what we were looking at, or by we, I mean the community had more of a sense.
My concern about that is if we are holding up timetables and further progress and announcements on something like that.
I mean, we've held up a lot of projects to get more information.
Yes, we have.
Why make an exception for when there's a lot of concern about?
And what if this? If this was a different entity presenting on this, the community would feel different, and many of the city, everybody would feel different about it. I feel.
I think with the other entities, if I'm holding up a developer, that doesn't really make me feel too bad about things. When I'm doing somebody's religion and their ability to practice that in their own community, that I can be sensitive to that.
And there's a reason why I think this is one of the few times we've had to talk federal law here, right? There's reasons why that's in place.
We actually talk about it quite a bit, at least state law, because we're often pushing back against what the state wants us to do.
Yeah, they're more of the friction point, aren't they?
So we have this conversation at the school district about the timing of when people can come and comment on budgets when we pass the budget. And maybe you have this in the city as well, like you have to build your budget and pass your budget by something like June, but you don't have the truth and taxation hearing until August. And by then, all the decisions are made, but you hear everybody and you hear them out, and it just seems like there's something very wrong with that. And the state has been working on changing that, and they did change it a little bit this year so that there has to be some noticing ahead of time. But anyway, so that's one part, because they're like, I'm coming and complaining because you guys have already made your decision, and why am I even here? Well, they're here because they need to speak up and say what they have to say. And honestly, part of it, of hearing voices, whether you're going to make that decision or not, is the public buy-in, and that you really care about what people have to say. And so there's kind of, I also am on both sides of that fence. I know that it's horrible to have to be there so late, and often people that are angry and unhappy with it are the ones that come and speak the loudest about it. And then you make a decision based on how you feel like everybody altogether would feel about it. So, I don't know, that's a lot of different opinions.
Yeah, I'm not sure where you're going with that. but-
I don't know where I'm going with that either. I'm really torn on that because I'm really torn. I think public comment is good in general. But if we're going to just make the decision, do we just make the decision and let it move forward? And how many people care about coming and having public comment about it?
I don't know how many people care, but I think it is a right that, in my idea, it's a right that we have, and we should protect that. I've had many, actually, I don't know, some of you haven't had any. I'm not happy about that. But we've had several meetings that went till in the morning time on topics that were, I don't think, as consequential as this. And I think we should let them have their say. I've been through it. It was not fun. It was not pretty. There's people probably still mad at me to this day on some of the stances I took then. That's okay.
100% true.
It's just what you vote how you feel is the best representation of what our city wants or needs, and you go from there. Whether it's for the applicant or for the voice of the people, they need to be heard. And I think that we'd be doing a disservice if we're treating this. I mean, we have to be sensitive because there is a religious aspect to it, and how Josh has explained that churches are looked at in federal law. But I think, in my mind, I like the idea that we've talked about of somehow putting it in there that either we're adjusting this Title 15 at the time that the applicant makes an application, or that we have this so it is a conditional use so that we have a public hearing on it at that time.
I like the idea when the applicant has an application, or at least there's general public understanding of what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
Be aware also that all this debate we're having is then going to go to the council, and it'll probably take them about 15 seconds to say something they want.
Say, thank you, Planning Commission.
They're going to
for
say,
doing
we
all the
watched that
work
and listened. We
for
love
us."
your points.
Then we can always say, hey, we push for public opinion.
I do agree. I think every one of us here thinks that we would love to hear what the public had to say to a point.
And I think it's concerning to me, and I know there may or may not be anything we can do about it, but the complaints we hear the most about from when we do have public hearings is traffic and the impact that's going to have on the neighborhood. And I mean, I don't think the other one is crime coming in the neighborhood. I don't think this is going to bring any crime in the
Big
neighborhood.
crime driver.
Hopefully it'd drive it away. But two of the things we hear the most about, people don't have a chance to address that, and there will be a big traffic impact in this area. So I don't know how we can deal with that legally. Not my cup of tea. Will depend on you guys to guide us through that, but that's my recommendation. With all that being said, does anyone want us to take a stab at a motion?
Did you close public hearing? Did we?
Oh, I think I did. I closed
you?
public hearing. Yeah. I only forgot once tonight.
He's on his stuff.
Are we supposed to make a motion, or is nobody going to make? Okay, I'm going to make a motion.
Because then that'll move things forward, right? I move to recommend the approval of the proposed Title 15 amendment based on the findings.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'm going to second that.
Okay. I have a motion and a second, and we're going to do this roll call on a yay or a nay, just so everybody has a chance to have their votes.
The mayor has you say yes.
Oh, yeah, really, does he?
He does.
Great. Well, I'm sticking with a yay or nay.
Yes or no?
I like it. You're going to get a text now.
That's okay. If you don't mind, we'll go through a roll call on that, and you can, I don't care if you say yes or no, I don't care. If you can state your opinion on there, your vote on it, and then we'll tally it up at the end. Commissioner Carroll?
Nay.
Commissioner Clayson?
Nay.
I will be a nay also. Commissioner Carroll?
Warnick?
Warnick.
Yes.
Commissioner Dayton?
Yes.
Commissioner Woodhouse?
Nay.
Okay, so I that was 4-2, so that motion would fail. At that point, do we just close that, or does that just go to the council that way, or do we make
Or can we make a motion?
another motion?
Can we make another motion to change this to a conditional use? I make the motion to change this to a conditional
Well,
use.
let's talk about it a little bit.
Okay.
Maybe we talk about why we're voting, because I don't know, does that appeal to any of the other dissenting votes or any other commissioners? Or or do we just want that to be a nay on there?
So I voted yes. Again, the conflict here, I think I still won out on yes, because I think we're not going to change anything here. So I don't know if we can somehow say this, but if we bring this up again, I'd like to bring it up concurrent to us having a sense of what this plan looks like. And to be perfectly frank, my inclination is to vote yes at that time too, but I am more than willing to hear everyone out. And I think that would be a wonderful experience, even if it goes for a very long time.
So I think
I would not use.
What meant wonderful? I think it's a worthwhile experience.
Yeah, worthwhile. Yes, I will go with that.
I do too.
I think you can make that recommendation generally, but with respect to this item on the agenda, it's to a Title 15 amendment. So you made a motion to approve the Title 15 amendment that got denied. So maybe your actual motion is to deny the Title 15 amendment, and then have the extra explanation that what we really want is this.
Right, that's what I was going to say. So, Dave, could we have maybe, as this goes before the council, it was a denied recommendation, could you express to them our concerns on these points? Commissioner Dayton and myself kind of like the idea of this being a Title 15 adjustment be brought up when the applicant presents to the commission and council.
I would think all of us agree with what you just said.
Yes, as either as either bringing it up to us again or as a conditional use. Whichever is the most legal way on this.
Right. So could you make the motion to deny the Title 15 change amendment with the added explanation that this is how we'd like to see it done?
Or, I mean, I'm also open to if the staff thinks that having this be a conditional use permit might not get us in a legal bind, if there's a way to wordsmith that so that it could be legally correct, but also and not substantially impact the applicant, but give us the option to see things, make changes, or recommend changes, and have the community have a chance to speak their mind. I think would be open to that too, just as long as some of the concerns we addressed tonight are somehow worked into that adjustment.
Yeah, we're not against this, and I still really would support an E with some kind of setback requirement. I don't know, but I forgot what I was going to say. I think it's going to pass. I mean, we want to go with the law. We respect the houses of worship. And if we're being technical here, this is the chance for the community to comment, but we're looking for a presentation.
I like Commissioner Woodhouse's comments on it. I think his comments have been that I don't want to, Dave can speak for himself, but he honestly feels that the applicant would want to hear those concerns themselves and have a chance to work through those. I think that's key for them too.
That is another really good thing for having public comment, is then you have a chance as staff to talk about, because people are going to talk about the other things, whether it's the tower or not, right? They're going to want to know about the photometric plan and limiting light spillover. They're going to want to know about roads and traffic too. And so that's a great public opportunity to speak to people who are concerned about it.
Yeah, I'll echo, and again, what was said vicariously about having them in the same forum. This could be sorted out, and it doesn't have to be us as the decider right there. And quite honestly, we may not be able to be.
And I think it'd be really good for us, for the city,
I'm down.
I mean, yeah. With this just kind of felt icky to me, that we're trying to put something putting the cart in front of the horse here. That's how I felt, so. And we're cutting out, our constituents.
I don't know if we have constituents.
Yeah, I don't know that's the right word, because I'm not voted in, but we're not like
Our friends
appointed.
and our neighbors.
But our neighbors, our community members.
Do we need anything more on this topic, or are we good?
Yeah, so if you can make a motion,
We need to make another
Do
motion?
we need to make a motion or
We
just
made a
let it
motion to
lay?
deny.
How we just shut down
My
the motion?
opinion.
I think they made a motion
I'm
to
sorry.
approve that was not
Denied.
denied. So
Yep.
instead, you'd make a motion to deny the Title 15
Okay.
changes that are proposed. At this time, you're going to deny recommend that they be denied, and then that we come back with in this other manner that we've discussed.
Oh,
Does that make
it
sense?
didn't just automatically do it.
Correct.
Oh.
Do you want me to go for that?
Yes,
Oh, okay,
buddy.
thank you. I'll make I move that we recommend denial of the proposed Title 15 amendments with adding that we'd like to have the concerns brought up tonight addressed by staff. And so this would be, if you're voting yes for this one, you'd be voting for denial. If you're voting no for this one, you'd be voting for approval, basically. So again, roll call vote.
Yay.
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 I'm not sure what to say. Yay.
Yeah, I mean, given that discussion that we just have, yes, I can.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
I have
Mr.
3 yeas
Chairman.
and 3 yeses. So
On the heels of that, can I just quickly make sure I got the right things down
please.
to communicate with the city council? So I heard that a preference would be to have some type of proposal to address what we're talking about here run concurrently with the site plan approval somehow.
Yes.
And also to potentially.
For the reason of the public hearings, that'd be, those other things would be public hearings at that time, correct?
It certainly could be set up that way.
That's the purpose for that.
Yep,
If it's just
understood.
could be,
That's exactly
then
what
we
I
need to rephrase it.
Yeah, no, and I didn't mean to
I think
be
that's
wishy-washy. That's exactly what I understood.
Yeah, that's our intent.
Yep,
Yeah.
totally. And then also to explore the prospect of this being a conditional use versus a use subject to conditions, which would be another avenue to do what you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, to come up with a process to let residents provide input somehow. So that's the one very common thread that I've heard to the different ideas that have been thrown out and that type of thing.
Sure, all the council members will have watched this, appreciate the banter that went back and forth, and they'll know exactly what you're talking about when you go through this.
I'm sure they'll study it.
They'll have something to say about it for sure.
I'm going to watch them. So.
I still won't.
I also heard that considering a setback in connection with the proposal that failed to receive a positive recommendation tonight is maybe an enhancement.
The idea, you brought the idea of a setback during the conversation due to the concern I had of just placement of it and how that might impact existing residents.
Okay.
So I think somehow if we could work that out, that'd be great.
That's a good way to
I
say
mean, one comment. It's kind of hard to know what we'd even want, just given that we're a little blind right now.
I don't even know where this is at.
That's a very
Shauna
good-
seems to know where this is at. I have no clue.
That's a very good point. It's very
Yeah.
valid, and it's a concern I've got too.
Yeah.
Okay. Can we close this item?
Please.
Okay.
It is closed.
We'll now move on. I guess that is, no, we have one more.
We
Yep,
do.
We have a title, a concept review for the 7th North building. This is 7th North in Maine, correct?
Yes. Mr. Hall?
You issued before that topic, don't you? You issued came up before that topic.
I bet you are.
So I have spoke with Chad a few times since a previous proposal was made for the subject property. I have not given you what I feel like is any helpful input or advice. And that is reflective of how I feel like I'm at in terms of what to suggest for the subject property, including how to tweak what was presented before. I say tweak I could describe it better, how to modify, maybe what was presented before in order to align with what the Planning Commission might be comfortable considering down the road. The Planning Commission, I think, was very clear about a couple of things relative to the last proposal, even though also I certainly want to acknowledge that I feel like there were very distinct viewpoints expressed the last time this was presented to the Commission, which is partly, again, why I'm not sure what to suggest that the property owner really do to make progress with this particular concept. One of the things, however, I thought that did come through fairly clearly was the idea of trying to make the building in terms of orientation where it sits on the site line up better with even contemporary structures that have been built in the last decade or so. One, for example, just to the south, an office building where they do have to make this building align better with those. Where, for example, there's a setback from Main Street, that's lawn space, and there's that kind of characteristic that exists. And I'll let you speak to the changes that you made, including, I think that's at least part of what we're talking about here. So I describe it that way as kind of an introduction, because we're really, really interested as staff, and I believe the applicant as well, and I'm definitely going to let him speak for himself, to get your thoughts about whether this idea has any merit at all. This is his second bite at the apple where we're coming to you as the commission. We had this queued up to discuss with the Development Review Committee this morning, and frankly, at my insistence, probably as much as anything, we didn't even talk about it. So I really feel like whether this moves forward, it's not necessarily technical and design types of issues as much as it is community character, policy types of things. And I think we look to you for direction and guidance on that. And maybe Chad, if you want to get warmed up here to take over. As I understand it, we're talking still about mixed-use building, non-residential uses on the main floor, residential uses on the upper floors, and I'll let you clarify that. A total of 4 dwelling units proposed with the subject property, and I'll let, and not only that, but please tell me where else I'm wrong. 8 dwelling units. Okay, thank you. That helps. The things that would have to change in order for this to be allowed. So this is getting into, again, I would say policy or like zoning text changes. As proposed, particularly with the on-street parking, you don't quite meet the parking count. And today we require garages for residential uses. I think the proposal here involves a carport. And there might be some other things, but I think those are kind of the more significant things that would come into play in terms of being able to allow this use here. Brandon, I'm going to look to you. Density, is that an issue by way of 8 units on a property of this size? And that might be something I want to look into.
It's the residential office zone, which allows for buildings with combined uses. I don't know that, I can revisit the code, but I don't know that it's necessarily a density thing, more of a, if you have this many units, how many parking spaces are available.
So density might not be an issue.
Yeah.
Then, okay, got it. Anyway, that's more than I intended to say. For me, this is your time with them, and would love for you guys just to be as completely candid and open and direct. I don't necessarily think you want to go through this again, at this level. So we're hoping to just get them to a point where they know what you're comfortable with, and we're the same way as staff. So, you have any questions for me before I? Thanks.
So Dave kind of explained everything pretty well. Obviously, we brought this here maybe 6 months ago. Originally, we had the building more pulled towards the street, kind of more of a, modern look. We've kind of, on the updated submittal, we've just taken the elevations off completely. I think last time we were here, we kind of had mixed reviews on aesthetics and things like that, which right now all we're looking for is more concept level approval. Like, we can work with aesthetics, we can work with the looks of the building. What we're really trying to do is just get direction on if something like this would be feasible from the city standpoint, as far as putting a mixed-use building like this in this location. Dave kind of talked about the main constraints being parking with our, which I think we talked about last time. Our idea was with the mixed use, you know, your commercial uses during the day, limiting those tenants to professional services that are, you know, 8 to 5 kind of thing, and then the residential use at night, which offsets the hours, so you can kind of use the parking both ways. And then we've added the carport just to kind of help accommodate, you know, the requirement of garages and things like that, but doesn't really fit with this area. So we're just kind of looking for feedback of whether or not this is feasible to move forward, or if it's something that, you know, we should probably just kind of go a different direction on. So we'd love to hear your feedback on that.
One question, and this may be for you or maybe for staff, I don't know, but the crossover between the retail space and the staff or their customers will be coming to visit them if they're 9 to 5, and apartments where we have 8 units above, where it's just assuming those people would mostly be at work during those times. That crossover, how does that work in reality? I mean, because there's a lot of people work from home nowadays. There might be people that work a swing shift or an off shift that come back to it. I'm just wondering, it seems to make sense to me when you just look at on paper, maybe if it's per se.
Right.
But I know we have, I'm in construction, we built a lot of projects. We have cross parking easements, similar situations where we're building a multifamily building and we have a business next door. They have cross parking easements, they can use it. And there does seem to be some congestion in the late afternoon a bit. So I'm just wondering how that works out, if you or staff has any feedback on that.
I mean, it's hard to say 100%, you know, this is what's going to happen, right? Because we never know how it will happen. We've been involved, so we do excavation site work. We've done 2 other projects similar to this in neighboring cities for clients we do a lot of work for. They've done the same concept, haven't had any issues. They've had really good success with it. But like I said, you try to put parameters in place, CCNRs in place to kind of limit the interference like you're talking about, but to say 100%, you know, it won't happen. We can't do that. We've tried to include, you know, some buffer stalls, basically, like I think by code for the office space, I'm going off memory here,
15.
But I think it's 15, and then the apartments above are just single bedroom apartments, so, you know, we're looking at, you know, single tenants or young married tenants, you know, 2 stalls per apartment should be feasible. That puts it at 16. I think we've proposed 21. I know there's some issues with the on-site parking that we need to work through, but we've tried to include some buffer stalls to kind of help account for that if there is some overlap. But like I said, that's kind of what we've tried to do. I don't know if the staff has any other comments on it. But
what are the on-site parking issues? Dave didn't mention that in his presentation. Do you know? Anybody know what those are?
So when we look at the parking, we obviously do the calculation like the applicant said. We also look at the locations. And so, for instance, in this case, I think it's a 5-foot buffer instead of the standard 10. He's got 3 off-site on the street that is counted towards their calculation. But the summary, I think, is also missing guest parking, if I remember correctly. And so we can definitely do a deeper dive and give a list of those where it's a concept review. Sometimes that deep dive isn't.
And we would normally not count street parking. I mean, we'd count the parking stalls, not the street. We always count the street parking as kind of oh yes, there is street parking, so there is more than what's being shown, but
yeah,
it usually doesn't get counted.
But in this location, I think engineering stated a number of times that we wouldn't necessarily want stalls marked on the street.
Yes.
In that location.
Brandon, when you talked about guest parking, you're referring to guest parking for the residential tenants? So it's like, yeah, and that's often included there, so that's yet another dimension, right? That would be. Where are the examples? You said you've had a similar concept developed elsewhere in the valley, is that right?
So we've been a part of two. So one's in Mapleton, Harvest Park, if you know where that's at.
Yeah.
The Harvest Park development right there on the corner. Payson, it was called Keep 51. It's right on the bend in Payson, I think 100 South.
It's got the barber shop on the first floor.
Where the barber shop is.
Gotcha.
Yeah, same concept. They've got commercial space on the main, and then I think he has 12 units above.
12 units above. Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Have they been able to keep the commercial full, the commercial spaces full?
Yeah, so it was a barber shop. It actually just swapped out in the last couple months to a coffee shop. But yeah, they've been able to keep it full.
I apologize if you already covered this. How many retail spaces on the first, like how many business?
Right now it's laid out for four.
Four
They
businesses.
could be combined into bigger units, but right now it has four.
Okay.
So.
I liked it last time. I still like it.
I actually like that Payson concept of this other, so that's helpful to kind of visualize what that looks like. I think it was maybe hard to translate. I mean, I don't think I put up a lot of opposition last time, but I think it was kind of hard to translate what that looks like. And I know every community is different and everything like that. So, though, as we talk through the parking thing, I think the parking thing just sounds kind of messy. To Chairman Mitchell's point, like, just with people working from home and everything like that,
right?
That can that could consume quite a bit,
right?
Yeah, I work from home multiple days a week, and I just know that's really common. So,
But what with 1-bedroom units,
I like the 1-bedroom concept. I think there's a market for it. I think it's needed. But you've got issues with the parking. Is going to be your biggest issues,
right?
And
hopefully limiting to 1-bedroom units. Hopefully, like I said, hopefully we get single tenants that have one car, and you got 8 cars there rather than 16, right? And so it's hard to say for sure, but yeah, parking obviously is a big constraint.
It's hard to say. I think, like in the community that I'm in, like a lot of people, 10 years ago, parking wasn't an issue. It's become an issue because kids are moving out later, right, and everything like that, and family dynamics are changing quite a bit. And I just think we run into that. But I appreciate that example that you gave from Payson.
would it be? And I don't know if this is if we can put in your bylaws, can you hold it to 1 tenant? Is that a?
I mean, there's ways that we could, put parameters in it as far as the CCNRs, right? Like to be a tenant here, this is kind of what you have, the standards, or not standards, the criteria that you have to meet, right?
I think if they're single bedroom units, it's either 1 or 2 people generally.
Right.
I mean, really. So
If you're 2 people in each unit, they each have their own vehicle, that's 16 of their stalls are gone.
Well, I think our code requires 2 stalls anyway. So.
Is it
Even
2?
for a 1-bedroom?
Is it 2 or 2.5?
Or is it based on square footage?
It's 2, 1 garage, 1 stall, and then
Which they have. They have
space, 1 per every
2
3
per unit.
He has 2 stalls. He has a carport, no garage.
No garage.
They have 2 per. I'm sorry.
You're a little bit slow on the uptake there, Dave.
I know.
Brandon answered.
You guys
it
are running
already.
fast. They have 2 per unit, but.
So, looking at the parking table, it's 1 garage, 1 parking stall, so 2 per unit, and then 1 guest space per every 3 units.
Right. And there are 4 commercial units, right? So
Which is 1 per 300 for
somehow
office.
that factors somehow into the parking need.
And does that doesn't have like how the applicant has those overlapping, our code doesn't consider that, does it? It would say 12 required in this case, plus 16 So it'd be a total of 28, plus guest parking would put us like 31. Do we make any consideration for that being during operation hours of the businesses?
Do you mind if I?
Yeah, go ahead.
The code, as it is explicitly written, does not. But we have things like the development enhancement overlay, for example, that's intended, I think, to give ultimately you and the city council an opportunity to look at that just more pragmatically, assuming that
As we
residents are
should.
typically going to be there when, the businesses aren't going to be operating and that kind of a thing. So that would be a way to not have to follow that numerical chart explicitly.
While I think on this one, parking is an issue, I would not want to see an asphalt plane of 31, 35 parking stalls for something this size either. So I'm glad that we have that leeway.
Yeah. An asphalt plane doesn't sound like it looks.
No, it doesn't look
great. And I think what happens logically, parking, I mean, I know there's that place across the street. If the businesses are popular enough, I could see people parking over there. I don't know, if that would
Parking
technically
gets
be-
full across the street. I go to the dentist there, and it can be tricky to park over there.
Then it'll extend out onto
Yes.
the road and everything like that. People, I mean, if you'll get there, you'll walk a little bit, right? Which is not always the most convenient, but
And there's on-street parking,
yeah.
which I've had issues with before because of the snow ordinance.
It doesn't snow anymore, though.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
I forgot.
Snow was so years ago.
And I don't think it's too wildly off. I mean, I was mentioning this when we talked earlier, I guess 700, I guess around 800 north is where we start seeing a lot of the commercial. But actually, I looked back at the map there. We've got kitty corner, a gas station,
Well, straight
To
across
it.
the street is.
an insurance.
Well, it's that whole.
Oh, you're talking north.
North.
Yeah, where there's the Ride
Talking,
Homes office
you're
and the-
talking south.
But I'm talking all corners on that. There is something commercial, even directly
Yes.
across
Yeah.
the street east.
Yeah.
There's a house that's been converted to an insurance agency and then a gas station, kitty corner. So I don't think it's too far off of the use that we see
Right.
adjacent to it.
Oh, and we don't have a public hearing on this.
No, this is just
giving them
ideas.
ideas.
We're not making
Giving
any
them
motions on
ideas,
this.
So does it make it-
Yeah,
We're
I
giving the
know.
applicant
I
comments.
just know that that over in the audience, there's somebody who is in business across the street.
If it was only 2 stories, 1 story of residential, is that just not, the economics doesn't work at that point?
Yeah, I mean, it just gets to be pretty expensive per door, obviously.
Yeah.
So we just need to look at. So I say we're proposing this. This would be ideal for us, obviously, but we just want to see feedback and see if it's feasible. And
For me, I think my comments would echo on what everybody else is saying. It feels like a lot of residents and retail on that one. I mean, it's a good sized lot, but it's a small for what we're putting on there is what it feels to me with the parking. I would like to see something that reduces that somehow, or I just don't see how it's going to fit the other way. It feels big for that area.
So maybe a couple of units reduced on.
I don't know. I mean, that's
Is
up
it-
to, I'm just giving my feedback
You're
on.
proposing 8 units right now?
yeah,
So you could
And like
do
I said,
something
they're-
like 6 units and 3
But
businesses.
the problem is then if you keep the same footprint and we go up to, he reduces it to 6, there's probably going to be maybe a 2-bedroom unit or some
Yeah,
layout in there that
Do you have
they can
to
get
do
more
this?
revenue off, and then you got more parking.
Well, I'm talking about smaller footprint.
You like the 1-bedroom?
I do. I like
I
that.
like
I like the
that.
concept of it.
Yeah,
I do too, because I feel like we need more variety here in a way.
right. Are you getting any of that?
yeah.
Like the 1-bedroom?
Like the 1-bedroom.
We think-
Obviously, the biggest thing is parking. I mean, that's been
I
the
think it's
biggest
just
thing all
going
the
to
way
be
through.
parking stress no matter what.
But like I said, no matter what you do, I feel like there's always kind of parking
And the-
stress. So.
Before we had the building was right up,
Right
we
on
had
the
a
street.
setback issue.
Yeah.
Yeah,
or
that's what I was
concern.
just gonna
I mean, our feedback was there was a concern
Correct.
with that, how close it was. I think you moved it back to where, I think that says 20 feet.
Yeah, in the front.
20 feet from the main.
How does that compare with,
The Italian place?
yeah, exactly.
The Italian place is a lot closer.
Closer.
Yeah.
You might be surprised.
I think it's honestly, I think it's the same.
I think it's the same.
Yeah, I would
You
be
know
wrong.
the office building to the south. Do you
What's
know
that?
off
Is
the
that
top
from
of
the
your head?
side?
Yeah.
The
office
setbacks
building
from
is-
the sidewalk or from the
That's
curb?
from the sidewalk.
Sidewalk, yeah.
20 feet from the sidewalk. I think the building to the south is 25.
I was going to say it's either 20 or 25. It's
20
one
or
of the two,
25.
yeah.
That's quite a bit back. How far back is the Italian place?
I want to say the Italian place is 20, but I could be wrong.
Oh, okay. So that's reasonable. That's a reasonable setback.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I said he moved it back. And
Yeah, so that's good.
I just want to know how it, playing with the rest of that area.
Yeah.
And going back to the units, I mean, they're single bedroom, they're smaller units, right? They're only 1,000 square feet, so it's not like they're big units that, you're going to have a lot of people in. It's designed to kind of be single professionals or newly married couples for a reason, right? So to try to limit how many people are there.
15, so a little.
A little closer.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, if I compare it across the street to where the parking lot is up front, although that parking lot doesn't offend me, but this one having the building on Main Street, I think, with the parking lot behind, that conceptually seems a little better than what we have across the street north.
Yeah.
And it's not terrible north, but this sounds better than that. So
The question is, would we like the concept enough to make the exceptions and changes that we need to make? Dave, remind us the changes that we'd have to make to get this permitted.
Honestly, I'm not sure of what all of them are. Parking would be one. How cars are parked, garages would be another one. I think landscape buffer to the west would be one, just the width of that. There'd be a little bit of a landscaping thing there. It's that type of thing.
And we've been pretty stingy about parking in the past. So is it?
Depends on who you ask.
Yeah.
yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Have you tried to park in front of the Italian place at 12:30 in the afternoon lately?
On Main Street?
That's
It's tough.
yeah.
In the parking lot?
We do get complaints because people
Can
think
you
we
zoom in a
blown
little
it
bit more?
on that, but
And scroll down to the north, other way.
Yeah, I've come in
Keep
that time
going.
of day to go to the dentist before and go,
So the old subway building, right there next to the gas station, that's right to the sidewalks, just
yeah,
about.
yep, you're right.
Yeah, that's like.
There are a
And it's
handful
not
of
great.
buildings along there that are the
It's
same
not
way.
And I don't want to repeat that.
yeah,
No,
it is.
it's
yeah.
a mess. It's okay. That's when I'm just like,
But we're quite a bit better at the Italian place, even at 15.
Yeah.
It's much less offensive, but
and
this would be even better than that. Assuming
I don't know that
it's
it's better. That's what I'm saying. I don't know that it's better to have the bigger setback along Main Street.
So would you be comfortable with?
I'd probably be comfortable with 10 feet from the sidewalk.
It'd still be much better than the old subway.
I would not be. My vote would be no on that.
Note on that.
But even the 15, like what's that other building? Because that's a fairly recent building. The subway is.
What would our standard?
It's almost as old as I am.
What would our standard buffer strip to the west be? It's right now. It's 5 feet. That'd
be 10.
It'd be 10.
Yeah.
Do we have any?
But it does have a masonry wall there.
So our thought was it has to have a 6-foot masonry wall. So, yeah, we're encroaching on the buffer, but it would have a 6-foot masonry wall as a.
But we always would
Secondary
require
buffer.
a masonry wall between residential and
Right.
a new business. So
Right.
that's.
I think the 10 feet, it's not a magic number, but with 5 feet, it's hard to do trees. So that's the biggest reason for something more than 5 feet.
Trees along Main Street in the strip.
Sorry, talking about the
And the
other
trees
side.
would be in the park strip.
In the strip that's between the parking spaces on the west and the house and
On the
wall
back
that would be
of
there.
the parking.
Oh, in the back of the parking lot.
Yeah.
Some trees. I see.
Those might.
Yeah.
That's a little tight.
Yeah.
And do they need to, is it part of in this zoning to have to plant trees along Main Street?
Uh-huh, yeah. Now, here, I think we're probably going to be talking as much as anything about trying to just protect the ones that are there.
Yeah, there's actually not any there right now
Oh yeah,
on
there's
this
Or we have
property.
it. Okay, so
So-
yeah.
directly south. Yeah.
So if
And
they
we
move
already have
that
it.
20-foot setback from Main Street to 15 to match like the other building, would that
No trees.
even give a stall? Would that do anything for their
I
parking?
think we actually had it laid out that way, and it gave us a few extra stalls along the building, just parallel parking stalls. So that could be an option.
Or it would allow you to make that 10.
Or make that big.
Yeah.
Take and put it back there.
Right.
And just because I'm curious, this is an existing entrance to the building that's over, it's just south of you, correct?
Correct.
And there's no concerns with us, with this proposal, putting parking within, I don't know what, from the property line, but they're obviously backing into this. Shared
So there's already a shared access easement in place.
There is already?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
All right.
That's our feedback for what good it was worth.
So is it something that would be?
I'd say it's more hopeful than last time.
Yeah, that is good feedback, like I said. So if it's something, like I said, our biggest concern is we don't want to put more time and money into pursuing this if it's not feasible. But based on the feedback, it's feasible if we can work through some of the issues. This concept is feasible.
Yeah, I think I've
Yeah,
heard that.
sometimes, I mean, that's a good point for everybody to be aware of. If this is, don't be nice, because being nice when it's something you want is money that the applicant's going to spend.
It's actually really mean.
Yeah, it is
right?
actually very mean.
You know, we try to avoid that.
So we're already about 10,000 into plans on this. So at this point, we'd just like to know, yes, keep pursuing it, or go back to the drawing board. And
I do like this one a lot more. I'm with Todd though. The setback on Main Street, I like it how it is in this. Even if it got its extra spots, I don't.
For me, the parking is, I feel like, same feedback I think I gave you last time, maybe a little bit less feedback than I gave you last time, but I feel like it's a big project for the area. If we could get some of the counts down, that would help me out in getting me to be on board with it, and then parking. So I see those as two issues that are a big concern to me.
Okay.
I think having carports, I'm not hung up on having, what are those called? Garages. I think the carports in that area of town's fine. Actually, yeah. That's just that parking thing.
I think even with the parking, I think parking is just going to be messy with what we're talking about down there. I don't think it. When I say it's not a showstopper, I think we already maybe could just be eyes wide open. This is going to be difficult. Other than that, I kind of like everything else you're doing here. I don't know that I would change down to 15, but yeah, I think you should probably leave 20 because I think if there's enough friction up here, that's probably a good place to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because then you kind of cover us all.
Just tight.
Okay.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Staff, any other comments, or are we okay to adjourn?
We don't have anything tonight, but we're happy to stick around as long as you want. If there's anything you guys want to chat about.
Else anything to go over? If not, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
We stand adjourned.